بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسألونك عن الأنفال، قل الأنفال لله والرسول، فاتقوا الله وأصلحوا ذات بينكم، وأطيعوا الله ورسوله إن كنتم مؤمنين. إنما المؤمنون الذين إذا ذكر الله وخينا قلوبهم وإذا تلي عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون. الذين يقيمون الصلوات ومما رزقناهم ينفقون، أولئك هم المؤمنون حقا، لهم درجات عند ربهم ومغفرة ورزق كريم. كما أخرجك ربك من بيتك بالحق وإن فريقا من المؤمنين لكارهون. يجادلونك في الحق بعدما تبين كأنما يساقون إلى الموت وهم ينظرون. وإذ يعيدكم الله إحدى الطائفتين أنها لكم وتودون أن غير ذات الشوكة تكون لكم ويريد الله أن يحق الحق بكلماته ويقطع آبر الكافرين، ليحق الحق ويبطل الباطل ولو كره المجرمون. إذ تستغيثون ربكم فاستجاب لكم أني ممدكم بألف من الملائكة مردفين، وما جعلناه الله إلا يشرى ولتطمئن به قلوبكم، وما النصر إلا من عند الله، إن الله عزيز حكيم. إذ يغشكم النعاس أمانة منه وينزل عليكم من السماء ماء ليطهركم به ويذهب عنكم رجز الشيطان وليربط على قلوبكم إذ يوحي ربك إلى الملائكة أني معكم فثبتوا الذين آمنوا سألقي في قلوب الذين كفروا رعبا فاضربوا فوق الأعناق واضربوا منهم كل بينان. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليم على أشرف خلق الله محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So we are coming towards the end of 2023. It has been a very quick year. I'm sure we all vividly remember the beginning of the year. And it's always very important towards the end of the year to do a little bit of self-evaluation, self-criticism, and try to understand the benefits that we are able to reflect on as far as what we have accomplished in the year, and also to be self-critical and look at the things that we are able to adjust throughout the year. And this is, of course, what we usually refer to as, New Year's resolution and all these other things. But of course, for us, we understand that this is an Islamic principle. It is something that needs to be done very regularly. ليس منا من لم يحاسب نفسه كل يوم. One who does not evaluate and calculate and criticize themselves on a daily basis and hold themselves accountable for what it is that they've done on a daily basis, then he is not considered a Muslim. ليس منا. And muhasabatun nafs is something very, very important, where we do self-evaluation but through critical eyes. Once we come to learn this habit of being critical of ourselves, then we will be able to pick up very quickly on our flaws, our problems, and make the necessary adjustments. A Muslim needs to be strong in his or her spirit, in being able to overcome all these shaitani temptations around them, and adjust themselves in such a way where they know that the choices that they have made is 100% Shari'i compliant. And this is, of course, very important, especially at the end of the year. What choice are you making as far as your career opportunity in the future? Someone says, I want to become a broker. How can you become a broker in this kind of a country? This is going to create a lot of problems for you. Someone says, I want to become a nurse. How can you become a nurse here? This is going to create a lot of problems for you unless you go to a purely female gender only nurse or a purely male gender only nurse, mathalan, for example, and other things like that. Preferences can be there, but it needs to be aligned with what it is that we want. As far as our acts of worship, making sure that we show our level of submissiveness, our taslim, and our ta'abbud, our devoutness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jawad, everyone in the world knows Jojo. Who's Jojo? And then we're going to have dramas. Can you come and sit forward, please? A little bit more forward, please. A little bit more forwards. You're okay. It's not nice that I have to single you out every week. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I find it, even though, you know, I muck around and joke about it, but I find it extremely disrespectful when someone is attending here. I don't go for more than 35, 40 minutes chit-chatting between themselves and the person next to them, or on the mobile phone, or coming in and out because all of a sudden they have a toilet attack, but the whole day they had no issues. All of a sudden when Sheikh's speaking, they need to go 6-7 times. And these kind of distractions distract me, and of course I lose my chain of concentration and everything else that I want to share with you all. The point, of course, is for us to be conscious of our choices that we make and not put ourselves in situations where there are going to be a lot of bad ramifications that will happen in the near or distant future. We know that when it comes to Islam, also something like income and money is very important, making sure that it is always halal. We also know that we have to fortify ourselves, protect ourselves from any kind of infiltration that could damage our spirit and our soul. And that's why when we become self-critical, we're also going to look at the society that we live in and be more alert and aware of our surroundings so that we don't fall into the traps of modern society, so that we don't get sucked into this dunya. As the hadith says, that hubbud dunya, the loving of this dunya, ra'su kulli khati'ah, it is the head, the beginning of every sin and every mistake. Hubbud dunya, loving this world and becoming materialistic, becoming so engrossed in this world, in this dunya, that we even change our values and our principles so that we are able to be comfortable here in this world. And that's the problem of society. Is today's society any different than previous societies? There have always been times where there was a major crisis and problems occurring. If you've studied the Black Plague, you would know that around about up to 200 million people died in the 14th century. It was around about 60% of the population died as a result of the Black Plague. And there was also the White Plague, and there were also many other issues and problems that happened as a result of these kind of disasters, either medical disasters like these kind of plagues and whatnot, or things that happened like World War I and World War II, and all of the damaging aftermath of that. If you were living in those kind of societies, you know, what are you going to do? What would you be doing right now if you were living in Palestine? I watched a clip about a family who have a custom of every morning they go out to their balcony and they sweep the balcony and get rid of all the debris from the bomb shelling of bombs that are happening to them on a regular basis. Yani for them, it's very simple. The same way as you mow your lawn, they're getting rid of bombshells and debris and things like that. It's not easy for someone to live under those circumstances, and maybe for many of us who have lived in such a privileged life might lose it. And this is, of course, the problem of the society that we live in. In any which way we look at it, we are going to see a crisis, a problem, but for us, we need to make sure that we understand the mechanism of how to deal with it. Today's society, mathalan, it's overpopulated. There are economic problems. There is most definitely what we can clearly see as inequality as far as money distribution is concerned. You look at Australia, and the percentage of Australian lands and mines, right, being owned by one person, the richest woman in the world. You look at the world itself, and from what I remember reading statistics, around about 70-80% of the world economics is run, and the wealth of 70-80% of the world is owned by 1 or 2% of the world. And if you've seen slum areas, and if you've seen how people are living, and then right across the road, I've seen it myself, right across the road on the other side of the train track, for example, right, you see sky-rising buildings that, of course, have all those privileges as well. So there is most definitely a very big gap when it comes to the distribution of wealth, and there most definitely is not any level of equality in that. One of the issues that this brings about is people think that the more money they have, the more freedom they have. The more money they have, the more effective they will be in being able to buy their own happiness, to buy their own love as well, to buy love. And of course, people, unfortunately, have evolved into thinking based on quantity and not based on quality. On the flip side of this, we can see in a lot of cases that in many areas around the world, that the world is safer. Yes, it's in your face more than anywhere else, and that's mainly because of social media and news always drilling all these things into you, bringing about panic and fear that if you do walk to school, you're going to get kidnapped, they're going to sell your kidneys in the black market, and all these other things that people unfortunately think about. Such that if you lived in the 70s and 80s, you would never even think of being dropped off or picked up when it comes to school. Even if your school was far away, like in my case, having to walk a long time and having to catch a train and go through so many stations just so you can go to school, and doing that on a daily basis, whether it be raining, whether it be sunny. Nowadays, right, with all the safety that is there compared to how it probably was before, because there were a lot of creepy people out there, still there are cases where a person feels that they are going to be targeted for whatever reason. And that's a result of people being more paranoid. If you didn't end up at home at a certain time, the first thing that would come to someone's mind is, well, there's probably a delay in the train or in the bus or in the car or something like that. Today, even though we think that mobile phones have made our lives easier, it's rather the opposite. That mobile phones, on one side, has made communication easier for us and receiving of information, but on another side, it's really made us miserable people. Because not only have we fell short of correct socializing with other people, but I'm sure if you don't answer your phone in the second ring or the third ring from your parent, then the moment you get home, you get a hurl of abuse at you because mummy or daddy thought you were run over by a semi-trailer. Paranoids. Again, that is something that is not good. And that's also because of media as well. A lot of people say to me, Sheikh, why do you hate news? I do hate news. I genuinely hate news. I don't watch news. I do not watch news. It's not that I'm not informed, but news nowadays is not really news, it's entertainment. And it is also fear factor in it as well, panicking you, making you panic. Something happened in a shopping center where a little child was this and that, but compare that to the millions of children or the millions of men or the millions of women that are living, and that's not the case. It's very similar to how much we are scared of a great white shark and how less scared we are of getting into a car or crossing the road. What is the likelihood of something happening to you in the roads compared to a great white shark? And therefore, unfortunately, when it does come to how our society is, we need to be more alert and understand things in such a way where we have a correct view, a clearer view of how we need to live our lives. Before, another comparison, right? And I'm making this comparison because technology and advancement from probably from the 2000s onwards, especially 2009, 2010, 2012, where there was a spike in social media platforms. But if you were to look back in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, there was less adult supervision over children. And children were more adventurous, as statistics say. Majority of children do not have any kind of outdoor interaction because of that screen and the plague of what it brings about in a person. Something as simple as, going down to the park and doing this or doing that is non-absent among a lot of young boys and even girls. Whereas before, people were more adventurous. People liked to go out in the outback and go on trips and do this and do that. Whereas today, the comfort of your own home, going online and playing Fortnite and all these other things, no responsibility, right? No headache, no need to do anything, no chores. That's the life. And this is why we can see that there is a completely different direction in how people are going in today's society. And that's what's wrong with our society. Because when you have more adult supervision, you have less independence. When you have more adult supervision, you have less independence. You, once upon a time, knew how to deal with a bully. You knew how to deal with someone, offering you a lolly and asking you to get in their car. You knew how to deal with a situation if someone was going to, for example, do anything to you or say anything to you. Whereas nowadays, the first thing that happens is they tell their parent, the parent reacts, comes and starts becoming a Karen at school and whatnot. What is being learnt? What did the young boy or girl learn as far as life skills are concerned? Did they learn how to defend themselves? Not talking about physically bashing the bully up and things like that, even though ideally that could be illegal, right? Yeah, I've got to say illegal. But knowing how to deal with it so that later on you're not a doormat, later on you're not a push around, later on you know how to deal with these things instead of having to ring mummy and ask her to come and intervene. This is what has happened, where now simple words trigger a person. And as we know, when it does come to triggering, that means that outside person, by saying a word, is taking control of your nervous system and making you afraid and anxious over something as simple as misgendering you. Something as simple as saying, "Oh, look at that beard of yours." Something as simple as any kind of verbally abusive comment, that comes from some kind of bully, whether that be young or old, and then this person starts to hyperventilate, breathing into a paper bag, not knowing what to do, and all these other things that sometimes happens. Really, you are allowing someone else to take control of your emotions and your feelings. This is where we can see that there is, of course, not me, but there is a lot of criticism towards this Gen Z generation. And a lot of these criticisms are valid criticisms that we have to look at. Remember what I said in the beginning of my talk, that we need to be self-critical. We need to understand what kind of direction we are going. We need to understand that if we are not alert and aware of the kind of direction that we are going, it's going to be very, very dangerous for us. It will break our self-esteem and our self-value that we have. And this is why, alaykum salam, hamd salama, and this is why when it comes to individualism, which is a big problem, because individualism is all about you and what you want and your preferences. It's not about the community and what the community wants, but your comforts, what you like, what you want. And of course, that leads to becoming self-centered, self-absorbed, narcissistic, selfish, and all these other things as well. And that's, of course, the foundation of secularism and capitalism and consumerism and all these other isms that we have covered on many times before. because someone all of a sudden becomes very highly opinionated. You know what's good for you. You don't care about advice given to you by someone else. You know your maslahah. You know what benefits you. You don't really care about the view and opinion of anyone else, even if it was your own religion as well, because you have come to learn that you choose what you want to eat based on your preference, what you like, what you don't like. You choose what you wear based on your preference, what you like and what you don't like. And of course, those things are going to define how you feel as well. Once upon a time, again, because there wasn't these franchise companies that were around, if a person, drank goat milk in the morning and had a little piece of dried bread that they made the day before, they will be more than happy and they'll carry on with the rest of their lives without any issue or problem whatsoever. Nowadays, there are so many people who can't eat leftovers, who have to have takeaway food and fast food, who have to have their Cocoa Pops and Fruit Loops in the morning, who have to have all these privileges for them, and they choose what it is that they want. The most common complaint that parents have is, my son, my daughter are picky when it comes to food. Because a lot of people have developed this mentality that what I eat makes me feel better. What I wear defines who I am. And that's why we have this marad, this sickness of brands, where people will do anything for the sake of getting that brand bag of their likes, because that's what's going to make them feel more important and richer. And if you sit down and think about it, and you say, wow, I need to work 3 months just to get, or 6 months just to get one bag that makes me feel a little bit proud of myself, even though I could have gone to Thailand and got it for 1/100th of the price. Really, what you eat is going to make you feel good. What you wear is going to define what kind of a person you are and give you more comfort. That, of course, is very, very depressing. And that's what social media has brought about, because it is proven through what psychologists have said, that the more you use social media, the more depressed you will become. And that social media, right, in what it is that has brought about is high rates of depression, anxiety, even self-harm and suicide, because as a result of self-loathing. You start hating yourself because you see them having the that kind of body, six-pack, or her always traveling from one island to another and swinging on that swing and posting it on social media and things like that. And then you, the depressed person living in Auburn, the best you've seen is Botanical Garden, and then you start hating yourself. You start comparing yourself. That's a marad, that's a sickness, that's a mental sickness. I'm not going to start talking about selfitis. I've spoken about that many, many times before, how people become self-conscious such that it damages themselves from within. And that is most definitely not good. the industrial world, the world of consumerism has really affected us. No one would make fun of you 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago if you were wearing the same clothes for 2 or 3 or 4 days. Unless you don't stink, unless you're not ma'affin, no one's going to complain about you. But today, if you have an outdated phone, and when I say outdated, only 2 years old or 3 years old, you feel very awkward in front of all your friends because you are, for some reason, a poor peasant that can't afford an iPhone. What's the latest iPhone? Because you can't afford an iPhone 15. Billah alaikum. By the way, there's a theory called the light, I think it's called light globe theory, right? And basically it's all about, it's a documentary that they made. It's all about a factory who made a light globe and that light globe can last for thousands of hours. And then they said, hey, wait a second, if we make this light globe this strong and this lasts this long, who's going to come back and buy more light globes from us? Let's destroy that and let's have a light globe that has less life so people can come back and buy it again. And that's what consumerism is all about. Really, they can't make a mobile phone that has stronger cover than this one that always breaks. Or the batteries, in the time of the batteries when we used to have mobile phones with batteries, they couldn't make a battery that could last longer than a few months. All of that is for the sake of the after products generating by far more income than anything else. And that's the reality of it. If you've bought a printer, why is it that so quickly you come to realize that the ink in the printer is finished? And they say it themselves, that it is not in its full capacity, the cartridges and whatnot. And we can give many, many examples of these kind of things, but yet we who live in La La Land have a completely different mentality that we want to have. I have to have those TJs, TKs, TMs, what are they called? TNs, right? I've already got a black and white one. I want the limited edition one. And they portray it in such a way, right, that you are naqis, you are insufficient, you are a nobody if you don't have your own collection of shoes and this and that and this and that. And that is, of course, devastating. It is really something that has consumed our lives. And that's why I think it's always very important for us to look at what is wrong with society. Not saying that there's nothing right, not saying that there are a lot of good things out there, not saying that all of Gen Z and all of the people growing up in today's society are bad. No, there are a lot of good people, alert, more aware when it comes to being involved. But unfortunately, a lot of these things have brought about some damaging issues that we need to be paying attention on. And that's why the studies have found that social media and using too much social media affects your sleep, affects your mindset, affects and is associated with depression and loss of memory and even poor academic performance. If you do have social media, make sure that you only choose one platform. Just choose one platform. And don't have it that much on that many on your mobile phone as well. Have one platform and limit and restrict yourself to the usage of your mobile phone as well. And I say this to everyone around me. For example, after 8, after 9, after 10, put the phone down, never take it into your bedroom, and restrict yourself. It's for your own benefit. It's for your own maslahah. And we really, really need to be paying more attention to this. Because when you are hyper-connected, there's something called antisocial, something called being social, and there's something called hypersocial. When you are hyper-connected, that means that you usually are able to speak to one person or 2 people or 3 people in your interaction. But when you're on 60 group chats on WhatsApp, and when you're interacting with so many people simultaneously all the time, that is really, getting your mind overstimulated, but not in the good way. And therefore, we need to cut down on that. Don't be in that many groups. Exit the groups. Be focused where you are able to be active and productive, contributing to your local community as well in a good, healthy way. Final point is that we all need order. We all need a standard and a system that we follow. And we must make sure that the simple things that we are able to do will have a strong impact on who we become. And that starts by, number one, not being that obsessed with our mobile phones, not being paranoid about our lives, but also learning to be independent. Proving to ourselves and our parents that they can step back and we can do things on our own. That we don't become like zombies with no values, with no understandings, with no principles, with no correct standards, because it's all about self-realization. Remember what I said at the beginning? Self-monitoring for the sake of self-realization. Ma'rifatun nafs. That's what we're talking about. Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbah. These lenses that you use in today's society need to be Islamic. The worldview that you have needs to be based on your religious principles. The eyes that you use, the lens that you use needs to be based on what your religion introduces to you. And that's going to reflect on your body language, your mentality, your facial expressions, the way you interact with others, the choices that you make, and also the long-term goals that you have as far as your responsibility is concerned. Because you want to develop a correct identity, you want to contribute to your community in the best way, and you also want to make sure that you have balance in your life as well. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله محمد وآله الطاهرين.